Pravali, I don't know if we should just go ahead and then if other people join, they'll just catch up.
Indeed, indeed. So, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening again. I see we've got people joining from all corners of the world. We're very happy to welcome you to the very first session of the Climate Heritage Narratives, which is a series of youth-led events from the Climate Heritage Network. And I'm very pleased to also let you know that this event is being organized as part of Pre-COP. And for the first time ever, the Italian Ministry of Culture has very kindly agreed to have culture at the forefront of the discussions, turning around climate change. So we're very excited to have you with us this morning. I would just take a couple of minutes to perhaps run you through the quick order of things for today's session. We're going to have a very inspiring keynote delivered from a young professional, which will be followed by a discussion which truly aims to be intergenerational in the sense that there's going to be different experience levels, different fields related to the theme for today, which is sustainable heritage tourism. And rightly so, because today also marks the UN International Day for Tourism, as most of you know. So we're going to go ahead and listen to these success stories that are being shared within this interdisciplinary and intergenerational panel. And after that, we will go into our quick breakout rooms. And I hope that whatever we learn from these speakers today will give us enough food for thought for our discussions to follow. And we're hoping that post the discussion, we'll all come back and join the main room and have a little wrap up of this session before we go into this series. And without further ado, I'm going to also introduce you to my colleague, Louise Kelly. Please say hello to Louise. She's from Historic Environment Scotland. She's one of the co-conveners for the program. And she's one of the big pillars of, that have put this event together. So I'll let Louise introduce all our speakers now. Thanks, Louise. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Pravali. Okay, so since we're in different time zones, we have pre-recorded our speakers for today, but some of them are present. So if you have any questions while they're going ahead, you can pop them in the chat. As I say, some of them aren't here, so I'll let you know when I get to that point. So first, I am going to, sorry, just double checking that we've got the right part. Go ahead and share our first speaker, and that's Marion. And hopefully you can see that now. And yeah, just let me know if you can't see that.
Yes, Louise.
Hello, I'm Marianne Floirec from unheard in Paris, France, and I am in charge of international exchange development and visibility. I will talk to you about how volunteering for heritage is a responsible way to travel and to discover new places at the same time. Volunteering for heritage is a commitment to preserve a historical site along a local association, but it is also a way to learn traditional know-how, to meet new people, and to travel in a way that will impact less your environment. And this is what we've been promoting at Rempart since its creation in 1966. So for 55 years this year, actually. And Union Rempart is gathering almost 180 associations everywhere in France. It groups also together partners around the world. And each of these associations are preserving and bringing back to life one or more heritage sites. Their activities is visitors, but also to organize volunteer action that anyone can join. And these working holidays are open to everyone who wishes to engage in a voluntary approach of heritage, but also who wants to spend holidays in a highly historical place. And thanks to that, we welcome thousands of volunteers each year on our sites. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of our numbers and of what is an historical heritage holiday. And here you have our map of the working holidays we've set up in France in 2021. It's not all of our associations, but many of them, and it can, yes, give you a picture of where you can travel to learn about the story of a place, but also knowledge and travel in a region that you've been wanted to know more about, in France at least here. And participating in a Rempart action, it's so an implication for heritage, but also for climate. To give you an hint of what Rempart has been committed to for their environment since its creation, we can see in the foundation charter that Rempart had already underlined the importance of respecting the environment of the site, that the site, the heritage sites, is completely linked to its wider environment. And we can see it on the picture here, that if you are taking care of a watermill, then you will have to think with the river, where you have to think with the floodings and the heavy rain and how it will impact the environment. So ever since its creation, Rempart and its association have been thinking about the environment and as the heritage site as part of a global environment. In 2014, we decided to write a more specific charter about climate, and this charter stressed out how the activities must be as sustainable as possible, that hosting the volunteers should always be done respectfully of the biodiversity of the site and of the environment. So basically, it was something that was already set up in many places, but that we wanted to write down. And in 2020, we created, after our General Assembly, a working group on climate. This working group on climate had to accentuate our commitment for climate. It made an assessment of how our member sites, our member association are impacted by climate change. On one hand, we focused on how the sites, we can see here an island, but also in the mountains, how they are impacted by the changes of the climate. How do they deal with the fires that happen more and more often? How do they deal with heavy rains, for instance? And also, how does this climate change impact their activities on site and the working holidays that they organize? For instance, in southern France, we cannot, in some places, organize working holidays during the summer months because it would be too risky because of the fire. So it's only in September. And on some other places, we can see that the period where it's really, really hot are more and more common. So the volunteers work from 7 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, and then they have their afternoon free because it's impossible to work in the afternoon anyway. So they had to adapt, and we could see this while gathering all this information and making this little inventory of how our member association are impacted by climate change. And while we were asking them about how they were impacted, we also asked them about their good practices. What do they do to mitigate our impact on climate? We gathered all this information in this white paper that you see here. And it's basically a good practice handbook that we aim to share with all our member association, but also to the general public. And what we've seen also in these guidelines are that many associations in Rempart are already implementing things to mitigate their impact, and that all of them are aware of the importance of acting for climate. So we can see that in our network, there is a really strong will to act and to act ever more for climate. This white paper gathers so good practices, and we want our association to continue acting. But when we continue to ask them, for instance, last week I was visiting an association in Northeast France, and we saw that they didn't give us their story for this white paper, but they still had some new ideas that we didn't put in the white papers. So it's just, as you can see, there is a date here because we know that it's going to be getting better and better, and that there is more and more initiatives that we can see. So yeah, that was one of the aim of this white paper, to motivate our members to be more involved, to be more committed to climate action, and to offer our volunteers something that would be really more green and not some greenwashing, to be really responsible on site. We have some future initiative, but we also wanted to foster dialogue within our network, but also to the general public, to talk with some other experts about it and see how we can better our impact on climate and reduce what do we do at the moment. We focus for this white paper. We focused on all the working holidays impacts that can be transportation, consumption, and grocery shopping. How do we manage water on the heritage site while welcoming the volunteers? So we had all these 8 topics, and they were included, obviously, in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And to give you an idea of the action that we offer, we share in these 8 topics, we can see that for transport that we share with our association, the idea with all of our association actually since years, to offer the volunteers to come by train, and then we pick them up at the station so they don't have to come by car. But if they do come by car, we also offer them the opportunity to share with other volunteers, the opportunity to have their contact so they can do carpooling. We have also many associations who are working with local farmers, and that even sometimes are locally growing food within the heritage site, so they can already cook for the volunteers with what do they have on site. It's very wide and complete. You can see here some of the practices that we've set up. So picking up vegetables also in some fields next to the heritage site, so the volunteer can directly go pick up their dessert in the field. Some of our association also have animals to take care of the grass during the winter season, for instance, the wood that is locally produced, and we have the stories of many of our association on each topic. We have a story, and when we call other association, we also know more of these stories, and it's really interesting to see how creative are the association to reduce the impact when they welcome volunteers. And here, this testimony here is about an association in the center east of France, where they actually borrow bikes from the municipality office of sports during the summer when they don't need it. And so instead of discovering the countryside next to the heritage site, they go with the bike instead of renting a van, for instance. So what we are talking about here is tourism, is about discovering a new country, a new way of living, a new heritage site that we didn't know about. And it involves the community, it involves everything in the region. We can see through the eyes of the people we are meeting, we are exchanging with a new region completely. It's not only passing by. So for sure, it is what we call slow tourism. We take our time to visit a place, but it's even if it's far away from very well-known and crowded places, we can always pass by them and visit them uh, quite fast when passing by, going on the site. But when doing this masterism experience, you will never get the chance to meet locals, to hear the story about the heritage site itself and about the region that goes with. You will not have the chance, as you do on the heritage sites, to taste the better locally made dish and also to learn how to cook it. So it's an experience. It's not only about tourism and visiting places. It's about learning about you, about others, about the region you're in. And for us, it's really important that we can do it in respecting the climate and respecting the environment, because it's sustainable. It has to be sustainable. Heritage restoration is a long-term process, and we have to deal with climate change. These sites have been here for longer than many contemporary buildings, and we have to respect them, but their environment as well. So what I wanted to say here was that volunteering for heritage is committing for something at the personal level, but also committing at the global level for heritage and for climate, because these actions are indeed respectful of the environment and the biodiversity. Thank you very much. If you have any question, don't hesitate. And also, I could share the white papers for anyone who needs.
I have to say, what an impactful start to the session today on sustainable heritage tourism. I mean, right at the very get-go, we're talking about slow tourism. We're talking about discovering a place by also giving back in the form of volunteering. And we couldn't thank Mario enough for starting off our session with this very strong message. Mario, for those of you who don't know her yet, she's the International Exchange and Visibility Officer at Rompa, which is an organization here in France. Mario, if you want to just come and say a quick hello, maybe to everyone.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Pravali, for the introduction, and thank you all for being here today. It's going to be a very interesting morning.
Indeed, indeed. And we are lucky that Mario is going to stay with us for the morning session. So those of you who'd be in the breakout room with her, make sure that, you put all your questions to her. And of course, I see already that she's also responding to some of the queries that you have on chat. So thank you, Mario. I'll also, before we go on to the pre-recorded sessions of our next speakers in the next session, which is the Cafe Roundtable, as we call it, I'll give you a very quick introduction to our speakers from today. First, we have from Asia, we have Priyanka Panchwani, who's a conservation architect and a coordinator for ICOMOS, India National Scientific Committee on Risk Preparedness. She's also an associate member of ICOMOS ISC, Energy, Sustainability, and Climate Change. Priyanka has also joined us here today for the morning session. Hello, Priyanka. Next,
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Priyanka. Next, we also have Marley Smith, who is a heritage studies student who's currently pursuing her master's. And this is why this is interesting, because we have people from all walks of life and all different levels of experience. We then go back to Nepal and we hear from Shrishtina Shrestha, who is also a conservation architect and coordinator, and she leads the Lumanti support group for shelter in Kathmandu Valley, and we'll hear more about her projects in Kathmandu. And to wrap up the session, we will bring in some bit of senior expertise from Peter Debra, who is a sustainable heritage tourism expert and who also coordinated the heritage tourism program for UNESCO for the past decade. All right, I do not want to take any more of your time, so we're going to very quickly go into the Cafe Roundtable. Louise, I pass it on to you to start the recording again. Thank you. a bit of a technical glitch to start off the morning, as is normal, I suppose, with any session. Louise, I'm not sure we're able to hear the audio at the moment.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me have a look and see. Hmm.
Namaste and greetings from India.
Could you hear that?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, back on.
I am honored to present today at the 2021 Pre-COP Climate Heritage Narratives under the theme of Sustainable Heritage Tourism. Today, I will be exploring native areas in an urban context with the case of metropolitan Mumbai in India. My focus today will be the indigenous people of Mumbai, tourism initiatives in indigenous settlements, and I will present a short tour in a forest area of Mumbai. My name is Priyanka Panjwani and I am a conservation architect and an emerging professional from Mumbai. Before the seven islands of Bombay transformed into the rapidly urbanizing city of today, the islands were occupied by the original settlers of the region. The city is peninsular and has a green oasis in the form of a unique national park at its heart, and more than 40% of its population is migrant today. The indigenous people of Mumbai are an integral part of the city's rich heritage and culture. They live in harmony with the environment and their lands are living heritage sites. Their beliefs, traditions, and their lifestyle are intertwined with nature, which makes them inherently resilient. Here are some examples of native people, including the Adivasis or the forest tribes, the Kolis or the fishermen, the Agris or the cultivators and laborers, and ethnic groups such as the East Indians. Please note the icons used for each. This is an indicative map of Mumbai showing the location of some indigenous settlements. The Kolis or the fishermen were settled on the coastal areas, the Agris on the plains, the Adivasis in the forest region, and there are a few distinct villages where the East Indians reside in Bombay today. Some of the native settlements that thrive even today are marked on the map. They generate a lot of curiosity and interest among the local as well as the global tourists. In the past decade or so, conscious organizations have begun to promote tourism in a sustainable way. These tours include visiting the native clusters, meeting and engaging with the local people, and participating in activities such as sketching, exploring the wild, learning about the trees and water bodies, and even some homestay options. I had the opportunity to be a part of a day tour in the RA forest recently. RA is located in the southwestern edge of the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and this event was promoted virtually as a breakfast and biocraft tour and was conducted by college students working at the Naturalist Foundation, and along with them Manisha Dhinde, a Wadi Adivasi from the Maroshi Pada in RA, conducted this tour. Through my first-hand experience, I believe that this tour advocates the intent of at least 8 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The tour was designed to guide a small group through an oral medium. About 60% of the participation fee was shared with the tribal community, and some amount kept aside to carry out forest restoration. The tour promotes the goal for sustainable cities through small but impactful ideas such as vehicle sharing even before the trail began. We encountered partnerships at many levels and were encouraged to be considerate to the clean and tranquil surroundings and the residing people. Sharing a tribal breakfast from bamboo and village-grown vegetables promotes responsible consumption and production. We enjoyed food as well as stories together, a good example of the goal for good health and well-being. Our native guide Manisha is seen here steering the conversation. Manisha also showed us how to work with leaves and flowers, and we felt enriched with knowledge and some art skills. She also helped us decode and paint traditional Warli art. Hence, the ecotourism initiative at RA is a win-win for both the natives as well as the participating tourists. What the indigenous people get is the exposure to opportunities for sharing their knowledge and earn an extra income, build partnerships, and more importantly, save nature, which is their home. The tourists get a chance to be inside a forest in a city environment and learn new skills, try out new cuisines, like Marion said in a previous presentation, and above all, get the satisfaction of contributing to a good cause. This activity also helps the youth volunteers to adopt responsibility. It empowers them by providing them an extra income, and they in turn help to expose the threats to the communities and monitor the vulnerability of the sites. The native communities are at the forefront and most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. They face several other challenges such as rights to land ownership and new infrastructure forcing displacement. Developing sensitive and inclusive tourism opportunities with the historic communities will help the natives recover from financial losses due to the pandemic and will be an essential step in climate action. A happy World Tourism Day to everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to your comments and questions. Take care.
Hi everyone, if you just give me a second, I'll share the next part of the video.
And a student right now. Hi, I'm Marley Smith, and I'm an environmentalist and a student right now, and I'll be talking about the Cayman Islands and how ecotourism and green recovery is a great way to spread the heritage and protect the environment in Cayman. So I lived in the Cayman Islands for 10 years, and I've been able to experience firsthand the effects of over-tourism and overdevelopment on our island. With the key principles of environmental conservation at the forefront of my mind, I was shocked to see the pounds of trash that were on the beach and the thousands of new construction sites each year. How could such a small island not appreciate its own beauty? And throughout the entire world, we've seen an increase in over-tourism and overdevelopment. There's been a 56-fold increase in tourism, with a shocking 1.4 billion international arrivals each year worldwide. So tourism and finance are the main industries in Cayman, and they account for 50 to 60% of the country's GDP. Tourism brings in many job opportunities and business opportunities and allows millions of dollars to come into Cayman each year. While this increase in tourism has proved beneficial economically, it's been detrimental to our environment. And so we need to find a balance between protecting the economic well-being of our island whilst also preserving its natural beauty. So in my eyes, ecotourism is the answer. Ecotourism is a sustainable way of travel that doesn't harm the environment. And as we heard from Priyanka's presentation, it promotes the conservation of the environment, the education of others about preservation, and it can also allow monetary gain to the local people. Here in Cayman, we have mangrove kayak tours where you can learn about how mangroves protect the coastal lines and how they're habitat to juvenile fish. We also have amazing coral reefs, which you can dive and observe without harming them, and learn about the zooxanthellae and the importance of coral reefs for our Earth. We also house one of the last great reproductive grouper populations. So every year there's a virtual spawning event, which you can watch online, which is amazing. However, on top of ecotourism, we also need to help mitigate the effects of climate change caused by the inescapable negative impacts that travel and tourism has on our island and on our world. So to do this, in my eyes, green recovery is essential. So last year, during our country's lockdown, me and a couple other peers started Cayman's very first tree planting project as a part of the Caribbean Tree Planting Project, which is a pledge to plant project aimed to plant 1 million trees in 1 year, which is also part of the UN's goal to plant 1 trillion trees. So we first started with doing an online social media campaign, as we couldn't really do anything because of COVID, but it proved a great outreach program, and we got individuals and families to start thinking about why it was important to start planting trees. And after our country's restrictions started lifting, we were able to have meetings with different schools, businesses, and even our government about having tree planting events to help educate the public and also get some more green recovery in Cayman. So we were able across the year to plant 500 trees, and I know it sounds like a small amount, but we're a tiny island, only 100 square miles. So 80 of those trees that we did save were from a construction or a future construction site after the owner reached out to us, and we got 20 plus volunteers to come help dig out these trees. And with the help of a botanist, we were able to recover red birch trees, mahogany trees, broadleaf trees, and silver thatch trees. What's the importance of this? Well, each of these trees has a special importance in Caymanian heritage and Caymanian history. So red birch trees, famously known as the tourist tree because they're always red and peeling, were used to make crates, matches, fences, and traditional Caymanians today still boil the bark to make a backache cure because of its antioxidant properties. And we have mahogany trees, which are protect us from the elements and are great for making fences as well. And broadleaf trees were traditionally used to shine turtle shells, because we used to sell a lot of turtle shells, because it has a sandpaper-like leaf. And silver thatch trees, finally, our national tree, which are sadly endangered, were used to make so much rope because of its durability and salt tolerance, and that used to be one of our main industries in Cayman. So in the early 1900s, we exported 2,000 miles of rope to Cuba and Jamaica. And silver thatch trees are also used to make the traditional Caymanian shoe called a whopper. So as you can see, green recovery and ecotourism isn't just about protecting the environment. Of course, that's important, but it's also about protecting the heritage of a country. Each separate flora and fauna of a country has its own story, its own importance, and its just own special part in a community. So I believe it's important that we work together with the tourism industry to try and have tourists come to appreciate the beauty and heritage of the country they're visiting, instead of expecting a concrete jungle just filled of pollution. So it's important that we work with the tourism industries to protect the natural environment, prevent overdevelopment, and protect the heritage of each individual country. Thank you.
Hi everyone, just give me a second to get the right bit of the video.
Greeting to everyone. This is Tristina Shrestha from Nepal. Today I'm going to present on Haiti's recovery plan. This project was initiated after 2015 earthquake in Nepal to support a municipality to develop sustainable tourism plan and green growth plan. For this, I'm taking a case of Kirtipur. Uh, Nepal lies in Southeast Asia. It is a Himalayan country where uh, trekking tourism and heritage tourism is one of the main income source. Kathmandu is the capital city of Nepal, which lies in the center of country, where we have almost 52 different traditional settlement. In this project, we are focusing in the southern and western part of Kathmandu, where Kirtipur lies in the western side. It is a historical hill town which has been enlisted in tentative World Heritage Site in 2007. Zooming into the Kirtipur, it was isolated traditional settlement till 1990s, which was surrounded by green agricultural field, and the main occupation of the people was also agriculture. But gradually, due to the haphazard urbanization, the whole agriculture field was occupied by a concrete jungle. It was a scene till 90s, which has been changed in this way. After the earthquake, many private houses has been changed its fabric. Talking about the settlement, it was a fortified settlement which has almost 13 entry gate, but now only 8 are remaining and other has already disappeared. In this way, many heritage elements are disappearing from this historic town. For this project, we started sitting with the community in their place to understand the local context, how the people feel about that place, their stories, and their myth, and how they see their own settlement, so that we can build a very good bond with the community. After that, we sit with the different plans of the settlement, and we sit with them in their public space. We use mapping as a tool to work in this process. And in this process, we try to convince them that recovery is still possible after the earthquake. We use different tools for during mapping, and also we try to engage a different generation in the mapping process. From this process, we came out with different maps which has documented many information of the site. This is one of the map of the temple, and also we did the inventory and all the measurement of the monuments, so that municipality can work on the planning. And also we did the mapping of the traditional boundary. Only this much tracing was found, where in other places all the traces has been gone. But by talking with the community, we could trace exact path of the boundary. Then we worked with municipality and provide a technical drawing that in this stretch it is still possible to retain this traditional boundary. Together with this, we have also done the mapping of private houses, which from this we found that only 13% of traditional houses are remaining, which are still possible to recover and restore in its original form, which are mostly made from the natural materials like mud, wood, stone. And for the reconstruction, we also propose different guidelines and the template, so that they can maintain the original fabric of the settlement. This is one of the traditional facade of the settlement, which lies in the center of the Kirtipur, which has changed in this way. So we talked with the community how to regain the essence of this main stretch. So by now talking with community, we were just showing them how it is possible. They got so excited, and even the municipality was trying to give subsidies in the wood use of the wood, and also incentive to encourage people to go back to the original form. Together with this, we have also done mapping of water heritage, which is very important for any settlement, which where we have found many water heritage has lost its identity. And so, in this process, municipality realize and many ponds are in process of recovery. With tangible, we have also tried to map intangible routes like festival routes, and created these maps so that tourist or visitor can use all these maps to go around the settlement during the festive time as well. At the end, we propose this master plan, which we have prepared with the community, where which green pockets can be saved for community to enjoy, which street can be used as heritage street, and visitor as well as the community can utilize that space, which area has potential for commercial use, and for the visitor which elements or which facilities are to be added. So in that way, we have developed this master plan for municipality together with the community. And we also provided technical support for the public structure which has already damaged in earthquake, and with the reference of images, and they are now coming back with the help of municipality. So this gives a sense of recovery to the community, that we can still build back better. Together with this, now municipality has developed this Visit Kirtipur website, where all the maps and all the information are provided, so that it will be easy for the uh, visitor to find all the maps and go around by themselves. And they have also developed their branding with Nepal Tourism Board, which has been referred from the traditional attire of female. And they have also developed community homestay. You can see this kind of template in many houses now in Kirtipur, where they have started a community homestay. The community nest has helped them to boost economy, not only of one person but whole community. So at the end, we are trying to networking all the working settlement, because in isolation, sustainable tourism is very difficult to implement. So networking was one of our end goal to develop a sustainable tourism in all the settlements. Thank you.
All right, we're having a lot of virtual tourism already in today's session. But as Luis is pulling up the video from our last speaker, who's also our senior expert, Peter Debra, I wanted to let all of you know that today we have Mahio joining us, of course, and we have Priyanka and Tristina as well, who are currently on the session with us live. So if any of you have any questions for them at the moment, I think we'd be happy to take them. Tristina, do you want to come in and say hello first for a quick minute?
Hi, everyone. This is Christina from Nepal. And thank you for providing me this opportunity to share our work from Nepal. If you have any queries, like you can ask me or write in the chat as well.
Thank you, Tristina.
Pravali, I think I have Peter's video ready to go now if you want me to just go ahead and play that.
Well, then let's do that, and we will keep the questions coming in the chat at the time. Go ahead, Luis.
name is Peter DeBrine, and I'm a destination advisor and a UNESCO Sustainable Tourism Consultant. For the past 10 years, I coordinated the World Heritage and Sustainable Tourism Program at UNESCO. I am pleased to take part in the Climate Heritage Network Youth Dialogue. I would first like to begin my presentation by sharing the results of a recent UNESCO survey that highlights the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on tourism and World Heritage sites, as this will determine how tourism will rebound in the future. I will then briefly address the impacts of climate change, heritage, and tourism, and provide some key ideas on how we can work to ensure that the recovery provides resiliency and regeneration. And if you bear with me for one moment while I share my screen. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating impact on tourism in 2020, and for many destinations, 2021 will be another challenging year as vaccination rollouts have been slower than expected and renewed waves of infection have taken hold in different parts of the world. The recent UNESCO survey found that many respondents expect the effects of the crisis on World Heritage properties to continue in the months, if not years to come. At the height of the crisis, it was reported that 90% of countries with World Heritage properties had closed or partially closed them, and respondents to the survey still reported an average figure of 71% closure of sites in February 2021. Visitors to World Heritage sites dropped by 66% in 2020, according to respondents, and at sites where staff redundancies were reported, an average of 40% of permanent staff and 53% of temporary staff were made redundant at those sites. Respondents overwhelmingly reported large impacts on local communities, especially from the loss of revenue due to huge reductions in visitors to World Heritage sites and grave concerns about the future. Some respondents recommended a recovery process that includes measures to support the tourism sector and communities and to safeguard livelihoods in the transition towards more versatile and resilient World Heritage site management. The uncertainty surrounding the current crisis has suggested a policy of realignment of properties towards domestic tourism for many stakeholders in the short term, providing, however, the equally important opportunity to build back better. Tourism and heritage are, of course, inextricably linked, and both are highly vulnerable to climate change. The tourism industry relies on coasts and other areas of natural beauty. It is becoming increasingly vulnerable to climate impacts like sea level rise, glacier melt, or extreme weather. Low-lying island nations are losing their beaches to sea level rise and their coral reefs to ocean warming. In the Himalayas, snow and glacier melt is making the mountains more hazardous and destroying the ecosystem's natural beauty. In the Caribbean, where tourism makes up to 20 to 30% of GDP in many countries, research by the World Travel and Tourism Council has found that the unusually strong 2017 Atlantic hurricane season cost the region over 800,000 visitors who would have generated approximately 741 million US dollars. The storms triggered hikes in insurance premiums as well of up to 40%, increasing the key cost for the area's hotels. Capitalizing on the new services that tourism and business and creative industries have been providing to destinations in times of crisis brings an opportunity to create a stronger ties with local communities, to integrate local wisdom and enhance local satisfaction with tourism. Communities may need business mentorship for their local entrepreneurship ventures to improve their supply chain inclusion. Furthermore, stronger local value chains bring social and economic benefits to local communities, reduce its dependence on foreign suppliers while supporting the circularity of tourism operations. Nature-based solutions have a potential to drive innovation in tourism towards sustainability, and besides mitigating the environmental impacts of tourism activity, result in better management of scarce natural resources such as water, coral reefs, wetlands, mangroves, coastlines, and foster disaster resilience both in urban and natural environments. Investments in nature-based solutions also respond well to the expectations of a growing demand for experience in nature. Also, enhancing mitigation efforts in the tourism sector, including through investments to develop low carbon transportation options and greener infrastructure, is key to resilience. It should also be seen as a competitive advantage, as the cost of inaction with regards to climate will be in the long run larger than the cost of any other crisis. Additionally, a growing number of consumers are demanding that the tourism sector takes responsibility for its CO2 emissions and would like to take part in these efforts. It's important to note that technical and financial support will be needed to accomplish such transition. By supporting the integration of a circular economy process in tourism can promote innovation and the creation of new sustainable business models, adding value for consumers and local economic development. The efficient use of energy and water are also essential measures. And by introducing a comprehensive place-based approach for tourism, we can develop tourism experiences based on the uniqueness of destinations across different fields, including cultural heritage, gastronomy, local cultural expressions, and better involve local creators, heritage practitioners, and inhabitants in the shaping of the tourism policies and practices. We should strive to develop a community-centered tourism initiatives that actively engage practitioners of local and traditional knowledge to strengthen systems for transmitting heritage to future generations through sustainable tourism, and exploring how heritage and tourism can improve the livelihoods of communities and practitioners while safeguarding the social functions and the cultural meanings of that heritage. And it's very important to underscore that managing tourism and heritage is complicated, but it will require new ways of working. One of the most important things is to engage with all the different stakeholders to promote a collective responsibility to changing things. This will be underpinned by the creation of effective governance and management models, and again, the developed shared values and responsibilities. I would like to share with you now some tools that UNESCO has developed to help in the management and promotion of destinations. In 2019, UNESCO and the Expedia Group launched a partnership focused on promoting sustainable tourism and heritage conservation through a sustainable travel pledge. The pledge takes an industry-first approach to environmental and cultural protection, requiring hotel operators to introduce firm measures to eliminate single-use plastics, for example, and promote local culture. The pilot phase of the project was launched in 2020 in Thailand in collaboration with the Tourism Authority of Thailand, with well over 600 hotels signing the pledge to date. The pledge is now expanding globally, with the core hotel group signing on in March. A new global website will be unveiled in September. Efforts are also underway for a global expansion of the pledge. It is the first collaboration between UNESCO and a global online travel agency. Another tool is our how-to guides. These easily accessible guides are focused on the best practice approaches to sustainable economic development through tourism. The first of the kind, the how-to resources offer direction and guidance to managers of World Heritage tourism destinations and other stakeholders to help identify the most suitable solutions for circumstances in their local environments and aid in developing general know-how for the management of each destination. The how-to guides bring best practice knowledge to a full World Heritage community so that site managers, tourism professionals, conservation professionals, and communities around the world understand the possibilities of sustainable tourism and what key issues have already been achieved. These resources are a valuable asset to site managers, in particular, who often lack the tools and know-how to effectively manage and maximize tourism benefits while minimizing its negative impact. The series of guides have been structured as a step-by-step process for site managers. You can see here that there's some strategic foundations that we find fundamental to the how-to guides, which focuses on understanding tourism in the destination, developing a strategy for sustainable tourism, establishing effective governance structures, and engagement with the different stakeholders. Another tool is a visitor management assessment and strategy tool called the VMAST. It is specifically developed to help site management and destination authorities manage visitation and tourism for the protection of heritage values while contributing towards local sustainable development and adapted and resilient communities by creating a baseline for sustainable tourism according to a set of indicators. The tool will be available soon to all World Heritage Site managers. As you can see, my presentation highlights both the challenges and opportunities for for heritage sites and communities that rely on tourism in the face of a changing climate. It underscores the need to ensure that when tourism rebounds, it spurs innovation and tests new approaches to support communities in their recovery and transform destinations away from outdated and unsustainable models and towards a more strategic approach for tourism that rejuvenates communities, protects heritage, harnesses cultural values, and protects against climate impacts. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Hi, everyone. I don't know about you, but I thought that was really good presentations. I found them really fascinating, even though I was here in the background sharing the videos and everything. So I wanted to open for some questions, and just a reminder that we don't have all the speakers with us right now. We have Marion, Priyanka and Shishtina. So yeah, if you have any questions, then happy for you to jump in, or if you would prefer to type them in the chat, then we can do that. So we've just got a few minutes now for those, and then we're going to move into the breakouts. So we're going to have 3 breakouts today, and we have people who are going to help just make sure that runs really smoothly, and they can introduce themselves when they're in the session itself. So we'll have about half an hour to discuss what we've heard today. I don't know about you, but I feel like I need a little bit of time to digest like all the detail and the really good projects that have been talked about. So hopefully we'll have that in the breakouts, and then we'll come back together to feed that back, as Pravali said earlier. So I don't know if there is any questions. We've got a question in the chat that's for Peter, and Peter isn't with us live right now, but I'll take a note of that because he's going to be joining us for the afternoon session. So obviously you might not be there, but we'll put that question to him, and then we can share that in the summary that's going to be shared from both these sessions afterwards. So I'll just take a note of that one there. Thank you. I have a question for Shishtrina. I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. I don't know, I guess that's what happens with a different accent. I wanted to know if you saw any kind of differences in tourism since you've had those resources available, obviously that were made from the project that you were talking about.
Yeah, so in 2020, we had a Visit Nepal 2020 declaration, like it was a tourism year declared in Nepal, but because of the COVID, many plans has been failed here. So there was so much preparation done by municipalities to welcome, and the community homestay was one of the initiative they did for this 2020 Visit Nepal 2020, but it was like badly failed because international tourists was not coming. But later municipality opened it, like they did a promotion in the domestic level. So but later the community was very sad because of the COVID, but later when the domestic tourists was slowly coming, they were very encouraged by that. But still many investor who has done investment in the homestay is slowly recovering. And our project has also given many homestay training to them, so how to enhance the standard for them. So somehow we have seen like positive change, whoever were feeling like very devastated because of the effect of the COVID.
So you're hoping that you'll see a bigger difference kind of post-COVID when you're able to welcome more tourists, I guess.
Yeah, we are hoping so.
I hope so too.
Louise, I have a question for Marion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we head into our breakout rooms. So Marion, obviously a lot of people who are present with us today are young professionals, and I'm sure they would be very, very interested in joining the action camps, the volunteering projects that you have. And I do remember that I think a few years ago, perhaps 5-6 years ago now, you would also do this as part of the World Heritage Volunteers Initiative, which is run by UNESCO. But currently, I wanted to know a little bit more about the process of how one can, be a part of these volunteering actions. If you could talk about that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yes, sure. I will share with you in 1 minute the website, the web page of our website, and where you can actually join most of our actions. They're all registered there for the year going to happen. And basically, at the moment, we don't have many going on because, well, we don't want volunteers to work under the rain. But most of the action are happening between, let's say, early April until end of October. And anyone can actually join. There is no need to have any masonry skills or anything like that. You actually just have to be interested and motivated. And so you have a list. We have last year we had 300 actions all over France, plus a few also abroad. So there's many action that you can join, many different topics also, and many different skills. The heritage that are actually preserved are really different. You can take care of the boat, you can actually work on some medieval castles. So it's really different from one to another. The spots are really different. You can be on an island or on top of a mountain. So yeah, we can always share a different experience on this site. And our next year's activity will be online around the 15th of March. So if you're interested, keep an eye on the website or on our social media around that date.
Thanks, Mario. I think we're all going to take note, and we're going to make sure that we join for the next camp. But from what you say, it feels like it's going to be a lot of hands-on activities, right, at the sites. So, of course, given the diversity of the sites that we have, and I'm not just talking World Heritage sites, but even those on the National Heritage lists, right? Oftentimes, when we talk about gaining those skills, we're very apprehensive because we don't know if we have the right expertise as young people. And if somebody does not come from a background, let's say in archaeology or architecture, how is that managed? Is it, do we work with the site managers? How is it that young people might feel like they're capable enough to contribute in a hands-on way to these sites that are very, carefully preserved by each of the countries?
So Rempart, what Rempart is trying to do is to actually teach and have all the volunteers coming. They're not necessarily young people, they can be older, and there is no age limit. Actually, you just have to be 18 if needed, and that's it. There is also actions for teenagers and kids, and there are always followed up with some technical facilitators who are always they know the site and then they know the technique. So there is no need to be stressed out about how we know and how we would do it, because they're here to teach us, and it's always a good thing to bring your experience as well. And the thing is, we don't have a deadline. We don't have to finish that castle for that day. So it takes longer time, but it's always a good thing to go with the volunteers. And also what I wanted to say was that we don't necessarily work on preserved sites, like listed sites, because we believe at Rempart that all heritage is has to be protected, and it can be also really little heritage, let's say, in villages or abandoned villages that have been almost erased from collective memory as well. It doesn't have to be something world heritage, but obviously it's interesting as well to be working on world heritage, but it's all heritage that are preserved. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you for making that point. I mean, it goes back also to what you were talking about in terms of tourism, right? When we talk about sustainability, we do want to go and enhance our capacity to support local tourism for sites that are perhaps not as well known. And eventually, through actions like these, if we're able to conserve them better, then maybe they get listed as well in the years to come. So absolutely, I mean, we're 100% with you on this. Thank you, Mario. Luis, maybe we head to the breakout rooms now, if we have no further questions. It seems we've lost Luis for a minute. We're just going to quickly give her a minute to rejoin. Okay.
Ah, here's Louise.
Hi, sorry, my laptop just disconnected itself from the Wi-Fi, so that was a problem. I was just in the middle of setting up the breakouts. I don't know if there was any last questions. I'm not sure how much I missed there.
No, Luis, I think you can go ahead and set us into the breakout rooms now. Thank you.
Okay, just give me a minute so that I can make sure I get a good mix of people. Okay, so what's going to happen now in a second is I'm going to open the breakout rooms. They're going to be fairly small groups, so I'm hoping that we'll have some really good discussion, and in each room I've asked one person just to kind of facilitate, so if there's any kind of silences or whatever, then they'll kind of keep that moving. And if one person in the group, either the facilitator or someone else, could jot down a couple of notes, just the main points that you discuss that you want to feed back to everyone, that would be really great. So myself and Reem, who has been one of the other co-coordinators, are going to facilitate a group, and my colleague Vanessa, who has some quite a lot of knowledge actually in sustainable tourism herself. So she's going to help out, and Pravali is going to kind of jump between the rooms and make sure everything's okay, and join in where she can. Andrew, I've not been able to assign you to a group as we said earlier, but happy for you just to join one as you see fit, or if you want to join one and then move to the other and participate in a few discussions, then that would be great as well. So I'm going to do that now, and we'll be in there for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back into here and feedback. So enjoy.
I just had a query for Luis. So regarding the next session for today in the evening, will the same presentations run or another?
The
Okay.
same presentations on, but I know that it's not going to be a good time for you. But
Yeah.
you'll see that some of the other speakers couldn't attend this morning. So that's exactly what we wanted, some people attending at each one. And then we'd be able to have speakers from all over the world instead of, you know, any one time zone only having people from, you know, wherever, countries that have similar time zones. Not that we're really in a similar time zone, but it is daytime there and here.
Luis, just a second. You know, I know that all the breakout rooms just ended, you know, quite abruptly. We had Richard who was sharing something very interesting about Aga Khan in our room. Richard, if you don't mind, if you could just continue that train of thought before we head towards the wrap up, that would be great.
Oh, you're muted, Richard.
Yes, yeah, okay, that swapped automatically. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile as an example of good practice related to youth and to community engagement within culture and cultural heritage, looking at all the various aspects of the Aga Khan organizations and how they promote and have at the center the such activities, and I've been involved in the northern areas and working in Syria and in Egypt on their conservation programs, and just how and it's been ongoing since the 1980s. So now there's these new ventures that are kind of 2 generations old. So the initial children that were brought into some of the programs are now gone through university. They've some have set up their own organizations, and their sons and daughters are now following in the same footsteps. So this continuity and longevity of working on projects is, I think, fundamentally important. And I think now you throw into it climate change as a new incentive, and I think you will notice, particularly with the Aga Khan organizations, just how they're responding to that and using it as a driver for change, as well as a mechanism for stability.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, no, indeed. We're really sorry you know, you were cut off earlier, but that's it, right? Aga Khan and so many other organizations that are working actively towards getting young people to, you know, act more and do more. And hopefully this, you know, this discussion today is just a stepping stone in that direction as well. Luis, do you want to do some closing, you know, remarks? Do we go maybe from group to group? From one of the...
Yeah, I thought if someone from each group could kind of give a few points. I can start with our group if that's okay with everyone else who was in my group. We had a really good conversation actually, and we were a really small group. There was just 4 or 5 of us when Pravali joined for a little while, because a few people dropped out just before the breakout, which is obviously they've got other things, but there's something really nice about it being a small group, and we all had a chance to kind of dig in. So yeah, we talked about a lot of different things, and everyone in the group came from different places, so could talk about different local examples. And that was something that we really talked about, is the need for kind of local knowledge. And we talked about kind of traditional ways of like approaching and viewing things, and ensuring that, as well as we talked about kind of youth and young people, is community engagement, and making sure that was there, but also how we take steps to make sure that's not kind of too overwhelming And we're not expecting, you know, people in the local community to be taking on loads of things. It's more kind of learning from the things that they're already doing and giving them the opportunities and the platform to share that. So yeah, we were talking about that quite a lot. And then we talked about kind of the other challenges in heritage, things like using traditional materials and making sure that traditional skills are passed on. And that's something we're going to talk about in the next session, but how that's really related to tourism and how kind of tourism, particularly over tourism, can sort of make that worse, but also there's opportunities when we're doing those things well to share that through tourism. I think that's kind of summed up what we talked about, but there was also some really great examples that people shared from their own experiences. And oh, I really like this one about in Japan, how they make sure that there's traditional materials available because they designate certain kind of forests for types of wood. Yeah, that really stuck out to me. I think that's like a really good example. So yeah, really great conversation, mostly focusing on kind of local and community things. So does someone else want to say something about what they were talking about? Reem, what was your group talking about?
Oh, hi again. We had a very enriching discussion within the group. We started from the discussions in the plenary session on engaging communities through different initiatives, the ways we have seen in engaging communities, especially the example of Nepal and how they developed initiatives with the communities to involve them as a way to like enhance their ownership of the site and develop new tourism kinds. Then we moved to digital transformation in tourism and how to make communities and youth a part of this transition. And we also talked about the fact that they are already part of this because the storytellers and the entrepreneurs are already coming from the communities, and they are doing this community engagement in their respective communities. Communities could participate in putting their products online, in taking pictures, in showing their cultures. And it's not definitely a way of like stopping, let's say, tangible tourism or physical tourism, but it's also a way of advertisement. So for example, in this crisis, people could see online what they can be visiting later. We also talked about online tools, which allows to have new versions, to have new actors, and to give a voice to youth and to communities. We also talked particularly about the example of Myron, as we had the chance to have her with us, and how tourism is seen also as a way of doing like a public service and to share knowledge with people, to enhance the sense of like common ownership, because they are doing this not for private sector, but for NGOs, for like common and shared heritage. So these are the main points we talked about, and it was a pleasure to discuss with all of the interveners. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like quite similar conversations that we had as well. And then the final group, Vanessa, did you want to report on that, or does someone else want to give say a few words before you close us out?
I can summarize briefly what we've been chatting about in our very, very small group as well. I think we were three to four, and then yeah, it turned into more of a sort of wonderful conversation between Christina and Richard, and I was just frantically taking notes of everything. So one thing that we've sort of acknowledged was that we really need to take a very holistic view on how we manage tourism, sustainable tourism, the response to climate change within that, to make sure that we don't create any adverse effects. Like we've had the example of Nepal building houses like up the way to save footprint on the ground, but then obviously with frequent earthquakes, etc., that makes them quite like vulnerable to that. So we always like really have to make sure that we kind of look at all those aspects when we're implementing a response to climate change, or in the sense of like the tourism aspect. And another thing that was flagged, which I found really, really interesting, and is I think a long-standing discussion, part of that holistic view is like there doesn't seem to be a one-size-fits-all solution to sustainable tourism across the globe. So Christina mentioned that growth is a positive thing, whereas earlier on we heard in Marley's presentation that I think like even noted that down because it was refreshing to an extent to hear that. She called it a shocking increase in international arrivals. So we've got a sort of like destinations which are looking to decrease their visitation in order to make tourism more sustainable, but we also have destinations where we are kind of like counting on those tourists to come around, but those tourists bring maybe a higher carbon footprint. So how do we take that into account? How do we ask for a visitation while we manage it to not kind of like spend too much of the carbon budget? And then the term just transition came up, and that was really, I think, very thought-provoking to see how we going forward manage to have certain destinations which are relying on tourism, which want people to visit, but do that in a sort of really, really responsible and sustainable way. And part of like a wonderful thought that Christina brought up was the fact that once you are in Nepal, they have a very low carbon way of life. So does that maybe kind of, not obviously that there won't be a perfect balance, there never is there? But it's a sort of like, you could go down that thought of saying like, well, okay, we've traveled this far, but while we're there, we'll make as little an impact on the environment as possible, like a negative impact on the environment, because you could do positive impacts as well, of course. So yeah, like just really, really lots to think about there. And last but not least, we really kind of thought we definitely need a place at the table amongst policymakers, and we've seen wonderful changes already in some places, part of this being the event here, and yeah, it's just interesting to see where this is going to go.
Thanks, Vanessa. Did you have any kind of final thoughts about the session itself? We're really running out of time, so I don't know if you wanted to just leave that to kind of sum it up.
Yeah, well, I would really like to stress is obviously like, well done to everyone. It's been really, really thought-provoking, really interesting to hear from everyone. What I found personally really, really inspiring was that while we're all physically apart, we do have some commonalities in the sort of challenges we face and the sort of things that we're trying to achieve. And the thread through all those presentations was community engagement, was talking to people, it was engaging with people. Exactly what we're doing in this session right now. We're exchanging our knowledge, but we're also open. Like we've heard examples of like learning from traditional skills, the local knowledge, etc. So I think that is so pivotally important for us going forward. And as long as we keep that conversation going, I do have high hopes, and that doesn't happen very often. So again, yeah, well done to everyone, and let's keep plowing on and doing what we're doing, and I think we're all going to be fab. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Pravali, did you want to close the session for today?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Louise. Thanks everyone, firstly, for such interesting discussions. I know I was sort of hopping between sessions and I kept saying to each group that I was joining that, there's such a commonality, as Vanessa just said, in what we're discussing, in the approach that everybody wants to take. It's also funny for me because I spent this particular weekend in Venice attending a heritage summit in Europe. And I mean, just no place that brings in the thought of climate change and heritage conservation better than Venice, because the local community there, how mobilized they are towards protecting their future, because oftentimes they tell me they hear tourists say, oh, we want to see Venice before it's gone. And that is not the idea that we want to leave the younger generation with, right? And so I hope that discussions like these, the morning session, we've had so many points. I've frantically taken notes. There are sticky notes all over my table, so I'm going to sum them up into what would also lead to our youth recommendations, right? Just reflecting back on what Richard was saying earlier about policy debate, this is one of the things that we're hoping would be the outcome. Any recommendations from youth that we get should feed into papers like this. We've recently had the European Cultural Heritage Green Paper that was released. And so any discussions that take place in places and platforms like this should find their way also to the policy dialogue, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. I'm very excited also to see what the evening session is going to bring to us. Obviously, as I'm sure most of you have realized, we're trying to make this process as democratic as possible, trying to keep it as informal and comfortable as possible. So I think in the evening we're going to have a different geography that will join us, Louise. So I'm very curious to see what the local examples from there will bring to us. But before I close the session for today, I also wanted to take a very quick minute to thank the organizing team, because it's been a lot of volunteering hours that have gone in from each person, over the past few months. Louise, of course, from uh, um, Scotland, Historic Environment Scotland. And Louise is joined by Reem, who is also here with us today, who is facilitating one of the groups. Reem is also a conservation architect who's been working very closely in, to organize these sessions. And we'll hear a lot more from her, I think, when we go into the sessions on transformative change, because that happens to be Reem's expertise. We have another co-convener for the project, Yolo, who is an emerging professional of ICOMOS from the Latin America region, who is not obviously able to join us right now. She was there at the beginning of the session just to say hello, but I hope that we will see more of her, in the evening today. And Andrew, of course, who's, sort of the brain behind this entire event, Andrew Potts, as most of you know. He's not only the coordinator for the Climate Heritage Network Secretariat, but he was also he was the lead author for the green paper that I was just talking about. And I imagine Andrew's also had to run to another meeting, but thanks to the entire team. And I also want to thank Europa Nostra, and I'm working as a volunteer for them. And, that's how I've had the opportunity to join all of you today. Well, we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep all of you posted on the recommendations that we gather from different young people across these 6 sessions. But thank you for being a part of our very, very first session, and I wish everyone a good rest of the day.
Thank you so
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.